Good morning. This is Siloam Missionary Baptist Church located in Rougemont, North Carolina. This is the Sunday School lesson for September 20th, 2020. The title is God Gives Victory Over the Amalekites. My name is Charlotte Timberlake, and I am the Sunday School teacher. The golden text reads, "And it came to pass when Moses held up his hand that Israel prevailed, and when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed." Exodus 17:11. Today's aim, facts, to see that God actively delivers his people. Principle, to know that while the methods we use may change, we need God's leading to handle our present problems. Application, to make sure that, like Moses and Joshua, we are dependent on God's help in facing present opposition. Introducing the lesson. Moses and the children of Israel were on their way to the land of promise. They had gone through several different regions and now encountered the Amalekites. They opposed their march through what they considered their territory. For the first time, Israel had to fight another people. God was leading them toward the promised land, and now the barrier was not the Red Sea or the severe, foreboding wilderness, but opposition by a fierce, resisting adversary. How would Israel respond? Developing the lesson. Number 1, facing the problem. Exodus 17:8 through 10. We learn from Deuteronomy 25:17 through 19 that the Amalekites and his forces came up from behind the Israelites and picked off the stragglers, the weak and weary who were the most defenseless. This tactic was, of course, cowardly and condemnable. Satan uses a similar tactic against believers. He especially targets those who are the weakest in faith and endurance. Number 2, handling the difficulties. Exodus 17:11 through 13. To implement the plan God gave them, Moses, Aaron, and Hur climbed to the top of a hill. Moses held up his staff while Joshua and his men battled the Amalekites in the valley below. Holding the staff aloft signified the same power of God that had opened the Red Sea. It also indicated that Moses was actively interceding for God's people. But Moses' physical stamina was not equal to the task. He could not keep his arms held high during the whole battle. So Aaron and Hur brought a rock for him to sit on and helped him hold up his hands. As long as they kept Moses' hands in the air, the Israelites prevailed. By sunset, the enemy was finally vanquished. It may be that you have never gone through a problem that could only be solved by the direct intervention of God. You may not be facing one just now, but in the course of time, we will all be confronted with overwhelming obstacles of one sort or another. What we then need is continual, fervent prayer until God accomplishes the victory. Number 3, remembering the lesson. Exodus 17:14 through 16. God told Moses plainly to make a special record of this event for Joshua. God also declared that he would be continuing to act against the Amalekites until they were no longer a problem. It was wrong of Amalek to oppose God's people on their journey to their promised land, so the Amalekites were under God's wrath. Moses built an altar to memorialize God's victory for succeeding generations. We will now go over the questions in the back of the lesson. Question number 1. Who were the Amalekites and what did they do? The answer, the Amalekites were descendants of Amalek, who was the grandson of Jacob's brother Esau. They formed themselves into a nomadic nation. They lived partly by attacking other population groups and plundering their wealth. Question number 2. With what task was Joshua charged? The answer, Joshua was assigned to choose, organize, and prepare men for battle against the Amalekites. Question number 3. What made his task especially difficult? The answer: this task was especially difficult because it was doubtful that the Israelites had much more than knives, weapons they had made themselves, and supposedly some they had collected from the destroyed Egyptian army at the Red Sea. They were not trained in using those weapons or in military tactics. This would be their first military engagement. Question number 4. What role did Moses play in the battle? The answer: Moses was to stand on the top of the hill with the rod of God in his hand. Question number 5. What did Moses' staff, the rod of God, symbolize? Exodus 17:9. The answer: the rod symbolized not only Moses' authority as the Lord's chosen leader, but also the supremacy, power, and presence of God. Question number 6. How did Aaron and Hur assist Moses? The answer: as long as Moses' arms were lifted with the rod of the Lord, the Israelites prevailed. Whenever he lowered his hand, however, the Amalekites prevailed. Moses became extremely tired, so Aaron and Hur had Moses sit on a stone while they stood on each side holding up his arms. Question number 7. What did the victory and the means by which it was achieved teach Israel? The answer: as Israel's first military engagement, it was designed to set a precedent. It was established conclusively that this victory, and consequently every one to follow, came from their all-powerful God. Question number 8. What judgment did the Lord pronounce on the Amalekites? The answer: the Lord said they would be exterminated. Why? The answer: the Lord said they were to be exterminated because their attack exhibited their extreme wickedness, as it was unprovoked and launched initially at the weakest, most vulnerable of the Israelites. Question number 9. How would the Lord's judgment be remembered? The answer: God told Moses to note it in a permanent record. He was told to record the Lord's words concerning Amalek so that judgment would be remembered. Question number 10. What did Moses name the altar he built at Rephidim? The answer: Jehovah Nissi, meaning the Lord is my banner. Why did he give it that name? The answer: the name was a reminder that the Lord himself was the one around whom Israel's army rallied as they went forth in battle. We will now go over the practical points. Number 1, believers live in a hostile world but must not respond to it in fear or hostility. Exodus 17:8. Number 2, effective leaders identify and mentor the next generation of leaders so the work of God's people continues. Verse 9. Number 3, effective leaders model dependence on God's power and authority for those who follow. Verses 10 through 11. Number 4, as a family of faith, Christians should support and encourage one another in times of fatigue and burnout. Verse 12. Number 5, God works through his people, but the ultimate victory belongs to him. Verse 13 through 14. Number 6, we can trust that God is with us in every battle and test. Verses 15 through 16. So let us look at the golden text again. And it reads, "And it came to pass when Moses held up his hand that Israel prevailed, and when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed." Exodus 17:11. Some might scoff Isn't it silly to put the ultimate fate of the battle in the hands of an old man raising his arms with the help of his two friends? The primary thing to remember here is that the Lord had a purpose for this exercise. After all, he could have simply struck the Amalekites dead in no time. The Lord used the picture of Moses' raised hands to teach the Israelites a lesson about who he is. The Lord's primary purpose was to show his people that Moses, and Moses alone, was his mediator. It was a rebuke to the Israelites who had just been questioning Moses' wisdom and authority in leading them. Through this battle, God showed that not only is he the one who provides for his people, but he is also worthy of worship. In holding up his hands toward heaven, Moses was showing reverence to God and worshiping him. The victory in battle represents the truth that the Lord is due all worship. What message does this unique example of the Lord's provision offer to the 21st century Christian? It involves admitting to both God and ourselves that our mere human skills and resources are insufficient for the tasks and challenges ahead. It is in this habit of humility that we grow in our faith in the Lord's provision and show a watching world that we rely on God alone. So, in conclusion, let us remember that God has the answer to our pressing circumstances. Like the Israelites, we may be faithfully doing something God has called us to when we are opposed by forces that seem overwhelming. Our response must not be doubt or fear, but we must pray and have faith in his provision. We should stand strong in the Lord, trusting him to win the battle. This concludes the lesson for this morning. Thank you for listening. Stay safe and many blessings.